Hello, Leo, and welcome to Pluto in a Strange Land, your 2023 spring reading from Planet Waves. My name's Eric Francis Compolino, your astrologer for the next 45 minutes or 12 signs or something. Reporting in this morning from the Broadway Lights Diner in Kingston, New York. One of my favorite settings to do videos, and they take care of my gluten-free situation better than anybody in the entire world. All right, so I'm here with the reading for the sign where Pluto is going to be in the 7th house. It's very important because the 7th house is the relationship angle. The 7th house is the angle that describes the total environment in which you find yourself existing. It's the house associated with partnerships of all kinds. And there's this little interesting clue about the true nature of the 7th house that comes from ancient astrology, which it is equally considered the house of both friends and of open enemies. So it's partners where there's a kind of a close orbit involved. It's a little different than the 11th house, because the 11th house more describes group dynamics, and the 7th house more describes one-on-one dynamics. But the important thing to remember about the 7th, which, by the way, is, well, I've got video, is here, whereas Leo is here, down here, and so the opposite is here. See, house number 1. House number 7, right there, 1, 7. So this reading's for Leo and Leo rising, same idea. And we give the entire sign Leo to the 1st house and the entire sign Aquarius to the 7th house. It's a slightly simplified form of astrology, but it's not modern. It's the oldest house system, and I've found that it works brilliantly, and it is the only real house system used by horoscope writers. There's not too many horoscope writers left, but anyway. Okay, so Pluto changes everything that it touches in an indelible way. It never changes back to the way that it was when Pluto was there. This is largely true of many different outer planets, though Pluto has a special quality of being kind of an unstoppable force. So, holding that thought for a second, let's talk a little bit about the 7th house generally, and we'll talk a bit about Pluto going into the 7th house, and then I'm going to give the background. In most of the other readings that I have done in this series, I've given a lot of background first and worked my way into the 7th house, but let's work with Aquarius, not 7th house. Usually I'm starting from the background and moving Pluto to the foreground. Here I want to start with the 7th and with Pluto, and then give some of the background, and then bring it back around to Pluto in Aquarius in the 7th house. So first of all, let's mention where Pluto has been for the last 15 years. Pluto has been for the last 15 years and is now moving out of Capricorn. Capricorn is your 6th house or 6th place. Oops, that's my battery going, so hold on a second. Okay, so I described the 7th house as a house that's more associated with one-on-one situations and your general environment in which you live. But the interesting thing about the 7th house from the standpoint of Leo is that you have Aquarius on the 7th house. And what this says to me is it describes the sign Leo as an inherently social animal. Now, cats are not that social with critters other than cats for the most part, but they certainly are social among one another. But let's set aside the cat metaphor of Leo for a moment, because it has other implications. And just describe the 7th house with Aquarius covering it is a social environment where most people normally would have a one-on-one type of environment. You have the sign of groups right there. And so this is what magnetizes you to people, and it's partly what makes you an influential person, and it is what, let's say, gives you an affinity for collaboration with people, and it gives you a leadership quality, and that leadership quality right now is a very important thing, and we're going to get there in a moment. Let's go back to the sixth house, which precedes the seventh. The sixth, which I've shown you here a second ago here, and apologies that I had a little interruption with the battery. The sixth house is Capricorn, and in your chart, and this is one of the most hardworking signs, and I think is responsible for your very strong affinity for work and your strong sense of duty. Leo is sometimes unfairly cast as a sign that is egotistical. When Leo is acting in a way that is inconsiderate of others, there's some other excess, there's some other issue going on that I don't think is inherently about Leo. I think that it's let's say an overdependency on glamour and a lack of understanding that your role is to be not at the top of things, but at the center of things. And if there's any reason that you have a lot of attention focused on you, it is because you're a source of heat and light and energy and also offering yourself as a central organizing principle. And so this is really a defining factor of Leo, is that it's ruled by the sun and is at the center of things, the center of the whole solar system, and therefore it is going to be given the role of holding things together. And I see that manifesting in your solar chart a second way, which is having Capricorn on the sixth house cusp. Now, one of the key phrases I have for the sixth house is doing things for their own sake. The nature of those who are careerists or seek fame and fortune in some way is that often becomes the motive for action. That becomes the reason why people do the things that they do. And when you have Capricorn on the sixth house, it's very important to do things for their own sake. The leadership that you take is also an extension of doing things for their own sake, rather than about doing them to get noticed or doing them to make a lot of money or doing them to be famous or doing them to be the boss in some way. You have a take command quality that is involved in the inherent purpose of something. So when in doubt, that means it's very important for you to come back to the inherent purpose of whatever it is that you're doing. And not your inherent purpose, but the inherent purpose for the thing. In other words, not your motive for doing things, but rather with Capricorn on the sixth, you are going to surrender your motivation to a larger purpose, to a larger cause that is about why something must happen for its own sake. Now, you've had Pluto moving through this region of your chart for 15 years, and there's a lot of doing things for your own sake that has come up, and it may not have been very satisfying in terms of getting noticed, because Leo does have a star quality. I agree Leo has a certain inherent need to be noticed, but when there's a lot of really intense activity in the sixth house, for example, that's going to indicate doing a lot of work behind the scenes. Now, your 10th, where we do things for additional purposes, for the sake of reputation or something, that is got a lot of mojo running through it right now, and we will come to that when we do. So 15 years, Pluto has been involved. It's been moving through here, and this is the sixth is a somewhat complicated house, and you've got a lot of things going on in there right now besides Pluto. But Pluto's getting ready to make its first of three moves into Aquarius. So it's going to be spending the next 18 months working the line between Capricorn and Aquarius, back and forth between them. And it's going to kind of like when you're painting with pastels, where you smudge one color into another. It's going to smudge the two inherent meanings of the sixth and the seventh. And so the sixth, again, doing things for its own sake. It's the house of service. It's the house of healing. It's the house of well-being. And to have Capricorn there again says to me that you will be the happiest, your well-being will be the strongest when you're integrated into a purpose and where you're submissive to the purpose of some kind of an organizational structure that you believe in, you have faith in.